I had just heard one of the people that we love, his name is Peter Gray. He's he wrote a book called Free to Learn, and he was on a podcast and he was talking about how this is so cool to have a child who's
just weed whacking outside.
Literally right outside the door. As hard as we try with all of this stuff.
We were going to do this outside. This is why.
We came in to avoid,
and here he is outside my window.
I love it.
Hopefully he's not here for long.
Hey, Hilda here. I bring you experts, experiences, and epic adventures to boost your health. Today I have a conversation with Maura and Danny Vega. They are an amazing couple. You might have heard them on the Wise Traditions podcast. They are known as the Fat Fueled Family. They have the Fat Fueled Family podcast. Try saying that 4 times fast. But anyway, today we talk about unschooling, which is kind of a random topic you might think for my channel, but I actually think it's really important for folks to know what options they have this fall, as many are entering into homeschooling. And did you know that there's a whole different approach for your children to learn? I thought it was amazing to have this conversation with this couple who is doing it in the trenches with many of you, I'm sure. So check it out.
It looks so broody in here, you guys. I like it.
Thank you.
We want to redo something
The
cool.
kids also, they always draw stuff for us and we hang it up.
Oh my gosh, I love it. So you guys, I'm with Danny and Maura Vega. I'm so thankful that you guys are going to be on this channel. We're going to talk about something that we've never talked about on my YouTube channel before. Unschooling, and I am so fascinated by this concept. I'm not saying homeschooling, I mean unschooling. So did you guys just say, okay, we want to take our kids out of school, we're just going to do it our way? Like, how did you get started with this?
Well, when Maura was pregnant and we started to have that conversation, like, okay, what are we going to do? Are we going to do daycare? And then we realized, like, it doesn't make sense to do daycare because she wasn't making that much money at the time, and it was like, what are we going to do? Work to pay for the daycare? So that started the whole journey, and then we were really fortunate to find someone online right from the beginning who has become one of our greatest friends, Anna Martin. She's the libertarian homeschooler, and she would just post conversations with her sons and like how she educated them, and we were like, wow, this is really not what I thought of homeschool. And so she introduced the whole unschooling thing to us. It's this child-led learning. It's self-directed. It's not so much like this whole thing where there's no boundaries, there's no nothing. It's really just allowing them to direct their learning, and we have to actually be much more active. People may think that unschooling is unparenting, and it's definitely not. It involves a lot more observation, and so we just went down this rabbit hole. So by the time Desmond was 5, we had like 5 years of research.
Yeah.
So what did I miss?
And you two were on the same page about it?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, for me, it was one of those things where I was always of the mindset of, I wish I could be one of those homeschooling moms, but I don't think I have the patience. And so that was work I had to do, and I'm still working on it. I still need more patience. None of us are perfect, you know what I mean? But at the same time, like he said, well, it started off with the daycare, but then even, this is kind of strange. Well, it's strange to me. I don't think it's strange culturally, but it is strange when you actually really think about it. But when my son was about to turn 1, people were asking me when he was going to go to school, and I was like, he's 1. I'm like, what do 1-year-olds need to know? Like that. And that's something that we do here in this country it's because of the moms going back to work and all of that. So I think it's just become normal at this point that by the time kids are 1, they're in a daycare or some type of like prep school or whatever. And now with the what is it called? Not helicopter, but it's like chronic like the competitiveness now.
Yeah.
Like everyone wants to specialize very soon, very, very early on. But I went to visit some Montessori schools because I was like, all right, well, let me see, we always knew we wouldn't do public school, but I thought maybe I would do Montessori school. And so I visited, and honestly, it was so expensive that it wasn't something we could afford at the time. And I was like, you know what, I can do this at home. Right. Why can't I do this at home with my son? And then it just evolved from there. I mean, we kept doing more research and learning more, and it just became even more and more obvious that it was what we wanted to do. So, with the unschooling, it's just more of a philosophy that goes with our parenting philosophy, where it's like it has to be, and just think of ourselves, right? Like I went to school, I went to public school, if I somehow came out of public school and I was like, well, you know what? I was bored, but at least I know all this stuff. I would be like, okay, well, maybe it worked. But the truth is that none of us remembers any of those things.
No.
Yeah.
Because if anything that we remember, it's because we were interested in it.
Oh my gosh, you're right. Like I'm thinking back to 4th grade when I made up a play with my friends. Like that's the stuff I remember. Or having a little
Or those
show in
few
our
classes.
basement, right? Yeah. Or the few things that really piqued my interest. I'm not holding on to any of that other information in my brain right now.
Right, and they actually teach us in schools. They literally teach us to, brain dump. You memorize this information for a test, and then that's it. You no longer
You've learned.
You've learned. You don't need to know it anymore. And really, we don't remember so many of these things, which it's like a waste of time at that point, because it's like, man, all those hours that I spent in all those classes, I didn't even. I don't remember any of that stuff. I didn't retain any of that knowledge because I wasn't interested.
Right.
So all education is self-education. All of it is. Think about it.
Right, but why is homeschooling kind of similar in the sense that you're trying to get your kid to know all this information? Is that the difference between homeschooling and unschooling?
Yeah, that's a big one. Like homeschooling, the way we view homeschooling is it's like you're trying to recreate school at home. That's why we're like, that's not cool, because, if you were to buy one curriculum, there may be like 10 things in that curriculum that you're like, this is not going to serve us well. And so we call it, I've called it before, like a la carte education, because it's like, we're going to take a little bit of this, curriculum, a little bit of that, and sometimes we may have no curriculum. And I've said this before, now that we're like 9 years in, and I'm so confident, and one of the things I have to mention is the fact that people have to first get over themselves, because that's going to be really important, because you're gonna doubt it, you're gonna be afraid, and then once you get over yourself and you're confident, now you're gonna have to deal with your family and everybody else, which they can also, derail you. Once you're at that point, and now you're at the point where I'm at, you're comfortable saying something like this, which sounds off the wall, but I am convinced that our children would be better off had we done nothing than sent them to school.
Wow.
Because when you think about it, like these kids, the whole philosophy of unschooling is that learning is natural, curiosity is natural. And these kids, like, just look at the lockdown. Like, we were not going to chess club anymore. Everything was virtual chess club, virtual STEAM, virtual jiu-jitsu. And these kids still found ways to learn new skills that they love. Desmond took up beatboxing, he got awesome at it, origami, all these different things, and he's literally spending his day the way he wants to, which I think is so cool. And sometimes he'll get in and he'll go deep for 2 months, and then he gets right out of that and he goes to the next thing. And I'm okay with that.
Right,
because a lot of us adults do that, and a lot of the most successful people, they do that. They basically do these projects for 2 or 3 months, and then they learn this new thing. So there's always learning, and there's no summer. We kind of like learning all the time, but we spend a lot less time, dedicated per day to the schooling process,
Well, it's interesting because if you look back in history, there were all those apprenticeships, where a young person who was interested in, let's say, welding or something would become friends with a shoemaker, and I don't even know.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Right,
Yes,
but and if you're interested in something, you would pursue it. It's not like you would learn about geometry and this and that. I think it makes sense. It does.
It burns you out a little bit. So, and you're very right. So school, it's funny because people need to realize that school is a new concept. Everybody was homeschooled, like you say. Ben Franklin, all of these, inventors from years ago, when they were 12 years old, had businesses. So school does a lot of things. School extends childhood beyond what childhood is. It's really just made for adult schedules, I think. It all came with, sending moms back to work. When moms started going to work, think about it, like you got to do something with these kids all day. They're literally made around the adult schedule. And I know, at least I know I was burnt out. By the time I got to college, I'm like, oh, you know what I mean? Like, I'm just like, stop telling me what to learn. So
because it's not just the information that's being poured into these little brains, it's the stand in line, stay seated, raise your hand, and it's like teaching children not to think critically, and actually maybe not to think at all, but just to take information in and dump it out, like you said.
Yeah.
Obedience, yeah.
I had just heard one of the people that we love, his name is Peter Gray. He's he wrote a book called Free to Learn, and he was on a podcast, and he was talking about how this is so cool to have a child who's
There's a little just weed whacking outside.
literally right outside the
You know
door.
why?
As
No
hard as
big
we
deal.
try with all of this stuff.
We were gonna do this outside.
I know.
This is why.
We
You know?
came in to
So
avoid the
avoid-
weed whacking.
And here he is outside my window.
I love it.
Hopefully he's not here for long.
Okay.
No, he'll be.
It's interesting because this is not a natural thing for a child, but it's interesting when a child is this in tune at 9 years old, which is how old this child was. They were going to a regular school. He didn't understand. He was smarter, you know, he doesn't understand, like, why should I be here? Like, why should I do this? And they never told him why. So he was very defiant. And, you know, they brought him in and guilted him, like they brought a, you know, child psychologist, this person, that person, bring the parents in. The parents are crying now. And of course, Peter Gray is thinking to himself, well, this is probably partly my fault because of the way we raise him. But that being said, like, we know our son and we know that this is not serving him. And all of these things are happening in school. And then they put him in another school, which is like a Sudbury school, it's like a democratic school. Like you probably know
We
more
have one
about
here
them.
in Palm Harbor.
Yeah, and they're like,
We're getting closer.
yeah, that's like, you know, the kids all basically in the morning agree on what they're going to learn, and there's not real structure unless it's defined by the child. And the other thing goes with, like, when they talk about, like, play is so important. They say the word unstructured play. That's a misnomer because it's not that the play is unstructured. It's that the play is directed by the children. So the parents shouldn't be the ones to say, you know, you need to play this way and this is how the game is played. No, these kids make up the coolest games. Like Dean on his birthday, you know, I had gone with the boys, this weekend was my son's birthday, and we went to Walmart to get a bunch of arts and crafts because we knew it was going to rain outside.
Yeah.
And so I bought all these arts and crafts, had all these ideas to do. They didn't do any of them. They thought of their own games. They played this game, Zombies and Werewolves. And like, they created this game, and Dean was like, Papi, I had so much fun yesterday.
That's
We played
important too for
Zombies and
their
Werewolves.
development, to create the game, to create the rules, and to agree without adult intervention, because that's another thing, is that we teach children that in order to solve their problems, they have to have someone in authority to solve their problems for them.
And then we're not surprised when we see, you know, an adult who was raised this way say, you know, look, this person's not wearing a mask. Someone needs to do something about that.
Someone
Somebody
do
needs-
something.
Yeah.
Oh,
And the
you're
same thing
right.
with sharing. Like, all of this stuff is
It's all
interwoven.
intertwined.
But like, think about it this way. Like, when you know, the norms are that don't forget to share, you know, remember to say thank you. And these are things that we're like, listen, we're not going to force our kids to share or say thank you. We're going to tell them that sharing is the right thing to do. Wouldn't you like for this other child to share with you? And say thank you because it's the right thing to say. We don't make them hug grandpa if they don't want to hug grandpa, because we teach them their body is theirs. And so, like, all of these things, what the interesting thing is that they end up being more courteous because they value these things, you know? So, like, you know,
They
all-
have a sense of autonomy, it sounds like.
Yes.
Right, and it's their choice, and there's a deeper meaning besides just being told what to do for no reason. So it's like, even with the thank you or the sharing, I will take the sharing, which is a better example. The reason they share is because they see what happens when they do. And also, when it comes to the property rights thing, like, we're not of the, you know, we don't just buy them all these toys. Like, they usually buy their own toys. So that's another thing. It's like, it's different. It's different. Like, some,
It all comes with
most
the-
most other kids are getting bought all these toys, and then of course they don't respect the toys, and then it's like share. It's like, well, no, hold on. If Desmond if nobody comes over to my house and says, your turn is over.
Right.
I need your iPhone right now. You know what I mean? So like,
Yes.
that's kind of how we do it. Like, we always try to apply it to an adult situation. Like, if it doesn't apply to me, then it shouldn't apply to them either, because I'm raising them to be an adult, aren't I? Like, I'm not giving them these arbitrary rules that are only for kids, you know?
What's funny when you say that, because I was thinking, what if more adults live this way? Like,
Well,
wouldn't
yeah.
we be a happier society? Like, I'm really into this right now. I'm going to study up on this, and I don't know, like, I just like the concept,
Yeah,
right?
like, think
You
about
gotta
it
check
this
out
way.
Peter
Like, if
Gray's
you don't,
book.
which one?
Another.
Oh, that's a good one. If you don't understand conflict resolution from a childhood age, like, if you don't understand that, like, nobody's gonna come to save you, and it's upon you and the other person to come to like a conclusion, like, okay, I don't want to play this game, but I do want to play this game. Well, why don't we play this game? This happens in our house a lot. You know, Dean and Desmond, Desmond, you know, they give in. But like all of these things this is how they're growing up, and we don't want to put those like training wheels on them, because we know that when we leave, what have we taught them? You know, think about it. Like, you can't put your thumb on them the whole time, and then when they're gone, just expect for them to be these autonomous beings. Like, you have to tell them from an early age, listen, if you got to go to the bathroom, you go to the bathroom. This is why Desmond always, when he started to learn about school, I was like, oh my gosh, we're painting this terrible picture of school. He's like, I don't want to go to school because I don't want to have to ask to go to the bathroom. And like, you know, but it's like, it's these things that, you know, when he expresses himself for certain things, I laugh, because the other day, Maura said something like, you know, don't eat that yet. And remember we talked about this? Like,
yeah, they gave me a really good answer. What was it?
He was like,
I couldn't even argue with him. I had to let him do whatever he wanted.
Well, that was Dean.
Oh, that was Dean. Dean is very smart.
But Desmond said something like, you know, this is what it's like being a kid. You know, your mom tells you not to eat this because it you know, it's in the wrong order. And I was thinking to myself, I was like, wow, we.
But it really hit me hard, yeah.
Because,
My gosh. So he's so autonomous that's how his brain thinks. And
That's
what was
so
it?
good.
What did Dean tell me? Because that was really good.
Oh my gosh, he's like, you said it's not a good time for that. He's like, it's always a good time for that, or something like that, right?
I don't remember what it was now. It was something about that, and it was, of course, me, because here's the thing, like, the hardest part about all of these things that we do, about unschooling, about all of this, is literally unschooling myself.
Yes.
And getting rid of my own biases, because we have been indoctrinated as well.
Yes,
So-
you just made me think of something.
So I
Go ahead.
try to control. I do.
Right.
I try to control sometimes because, well, one, I'm a controlling person who has, you know, a lot of history with coming from a controlling family. So of course I'm controlling because I was raised by controlling people.
We all have our traumas.
So it's like we all have our traumas, and so it's like that's the hardest part. Really, is me being hands off. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Is allowing the mistake, or the mistake. Really, you have to allow them to make mistakes.
How many times does a parent say, no, don't do that because you're going to hurt yourself? The kid might just learn best if they actually hurt themselves. I mean, you don't want them to get killed crossing the street, but you know what I mean? Like, we don't let them, because we were told that same phrase.
And words matter too. It's how
Words
you say it.
matter, how you say it. I'm gonna use that
Talk to me about that, yeah.
exact example, okay? And we always say we don't risk life or limb, but pain is the best teacher. So what we say is, instead of like, don't do that, you're gonna fall from there. I don't like to speak words over them either.
No, I hate that.
Yeah.
But what I will say is, you know, the truth. If it is something that will hurt, I'm like, I do let them know. I'm like, if that might end badly and it's gonna hurt.
Yeah, if you fall from there,
If you fall from there, it's gonna hurt.
Right. I kind of had some of the same philosophy. I remember letting my son climb this really high fence, and a friend of mine was like, Hilda, why are you letting him do that? And I was like, why not? Like, he's just having so much fun. He was meant to climb. What if I taught him, Andrew, you always have to be cautious. Don't do these things. He would turn into this timid child who felt like he had to look to others for direction, right?
Yeah.
That's not good. But I was thinking earlier when you were talking about this phrase, this person said, I had a wonderful education. It's taken me years to get over it. And in a sense, that's what I hear you saying. And that's why I wanted to bring up the subject. My channel is focused a lot on health, but I think there's something that's good for us mentally to stretch and challenge our own constructs. Do you agree?
Absolutely. Like Maura said, it's like unschooling yourself. It's like being mindful of what you're bringing into this. Like, they're not this piece of clay that we mold into this beautiful statue that we want, you know? Mm-hmm. They are autonomous beings, and we just have to look back at our childhood. Maura's really vocal about this. Is like, I was a kid, and they thought I was stupid, and they thought that I didn't know what they were talking about, and they treated me as lesser than, and that doesn't make sense. Like, you know, first of all, yes, they need to earn respect. So, you know, you earn respect by being polite. We only have 2 rules. We say that you will not encroach upon someone's person or property. So that gets rid of everything: biting, screaming, stealing, and we do everything we've agreed to do. And the consequences of that would be, you wouldn't be in good standing with the family if you did that. So, like, if you're going to ask me to do something for you, I'm not going to do it because you're not.
Consequences,
Yeah, so like all of those things, like, it's hard. It's not easy, you know, but I think in the long run, remember with our parents used to tell us, oh, you're gonna see one day he's gonna, and we would be like, I can't wait until people start to see like the fruits of this. And they started to see it when he was as early as 5 years old. Like, the way he looks people in the eye when he's not afraid of adults. That's the other thing with school is like they segregate you by age, and you're getting all of your social cues from only children your age because the teacher to child ratio is really bad. And versus like a homeschool co-op, you're gonna have more adults. You're gonna have different children of different ages. And just like in Montessori, one of the things we love about Montessori is that you'll have like groups of 3 years. So the younger ones are learning from the older ones. The older ones have the benefit of becoming mentors, which is always helpful to teach others. You learn things better. And so they're all going through that process. And in the end, I mean, there's the Homeschool Legal Defense Fund did an awesome study in 2010, and they started looking at, do the parents need to go to college? There's no difference between college and non-college parents. Do they need to spend a lot of money? There's no difference statistically between parents who spend more or less than $600 a year. There's no difference in all of these things. Socially, they
socioeconomic status either, right? Like,
yes, and social development as well, because they always say, oh, what about socialization?
Well, they can't argue that one anymore with the COVID rules. With the social distancing and stuff. But that's just funny that they say that, because it's like what Danny said. The biggest compliment I get is how well my kids are socialized, and it's because of that. It's like they're not getting their social cues from other 3-year-olds. They're getting them from me.
Yeah. So if you think of that awkward homeschooled kid, and you try to say that he's awkward because it's homeschooled, if you really looked at the situation, a lot of time he's homeschooled because he's awkward. He's either on the spectrum or he has a learning disability, and there's no one in that monstrous, huge
There's no help
system.
for them,
There's just, it's
impossible.
It's not, I don't want to say it's an unethical thing. It's just when you have to manage, however many millions of kids throughout the country, this is what a school is. You got a school of fish. You don't want people two out front. You want them two out back. You want to keep them right here and just keep moving them along. And we just have always been like, no, that's not what we want.
And maybe they're labeling that kid as awkward because he wants to talk to the adults and not just go play somewhere else separately.
I was awkward.
He wants to hear the stories. Like, is that awkward? Like, why are we so quick to label? Do you know what I mean? That's something to think about as well.
We have to label. That's like something that we have to do. What is it? What do they have? Is it?
Because then we can give them a solution. Sell a solution.
Yeah.
So I have a question for you, because I've traveled some to Australia and Kenya, and I'm trying to imagine how our ancestors taught their children. And I think it was kind of unschooling. I'm thinking about, Suzanne Thompson, an Aboriginal woman, not far from Barcaldine in Australia. And I think, unless I'm mistaken, because I've studied on this too, like all ages would be together.
Yes.
It wasn't segregated by age, number one. And then the girls would be learning from their mothers or their grandmothers how to prepare a meal. Then some would be learning how to go out and hunt for this or that. Like, they had definitely gender roles segregated, but it was also just kind of child-led in a way. And when the kid was ready, actually, yes, I just did hear this recently. When the child was ready for a certain experience, he would ask, and then they would invite him to be a part of something big.
Yeah,
they would ask once he asked.
And they asked.
Not just like he is a certain age
and
he's
it's
going
all
to join
different.
us. He had to ask.
And rites of passage.
Yeah.
This is something that's so important for us. Like, as a man raising 2 boys, I'm very aware of the importance of my role in their life and the importance of authenticity. Like, for example, I can't just tell my boys, you guys are awesome, you guys are the best, you're everything. Like, they would sense that deep inside. If I had not pushed them, taken them on hikes, doing the things all of these things that we want to, as time passes on, challenge them with, and then for them to look back and say, oh, I did that. Because if I were to say, son, you're a man now, in the back of his mind, he would know that I'm lying, because he didn't earn it. So we can't take that away from them. We have to do that for them. Like, we have to, and these rites of passage are everywhere around the world throughout all of history. Like, you would go on a vision quest, and you would go hunt, and then you would be by yourself overnight somewhere, something like that, and then you come back and it's like, now you're ready. Like the Maasai have a rite of passage that's pretty intense. Like, I forget what it is.
That's right. It's including that kind of thing where you're by yourself and you've got so much time and you've got to hunt this animal or whatever it is, right? You're right. There is a very rigorous rite of passage.
Maybe you didn't go there.
John Taylor Gatto is He was New York City and New York State Teacher of the Year several times. He started to get these really good outcomes, and then the people like and the higher ups were like, let's start sending people over there. We got to see what he's doing. And he actually wrote, was it the Wall Street Journal? It was the Wall Street Journal, right?
I think so, yeah.
He wrote an article, an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal called "I Quit," I think.
It was a resignation.
Oh,
Yeah.
I've heard of that. I quit.
It's really
Yeah,
great.
and he was basically saying that, like, he's like, first of all, this guy had all of these different children on their own curriculum.
They were middle
like,
schoolers.
They were middle schoolers, and they were in New York City. And like one girl who loved to swim, she was out looking at all the public swimming pools, and creating like a whole packet of like, this is the best, rating them. And Reader's Digest even wanted to publish her, but they offered her $200, but they said, you can't keep the author, and she said no, because I wanted to be the author.
I love
Yeah.
And he had one of these kids he was always drawing in class, so he introduced him back to what you were saying with the apprenticeship.
Yeah.
He introduced him to a comic book artist, and that kid became like an apprentice, and now he's a comic book artist.
Pause real quick.
Yes.
Because in that situation, that's the perfect situation where, under a normal circumstance, what probably happens more often than not is you're not paying attention in class and the kid gets in trouble when the kid is so talented
Yeah.
and just is so uninterested
You're just
in
bursting their
whatever
bubble.
total garbage you're trying to teach. Like, I can just think back on my, like, look, history class for me was like, I would rather die.
And I
honestly.
love
Like,
history.
I did not pay attention. Danny's always like, oh, you don't remember this from school? I'm like, no, because how many times have I told you, Danny, I
Yeah.
hated history class. I never
Yeah.
paid attention. So
Oh
of course,
my
imagine this kid
gosh.
drawing, amazing artist, drawing comics.
So he started to talk about, I think it was in that
Incredible.
article, right? Like
And
he's-
didn't he become a famous, like he was like a comic book?
Yeah, the kid?
Yeah, that same kid.
Yeah.
But even if he never became famous, he's doing what he was meant to do.
Right.
And
Exactly.
he's following his heart's desire. And you're right.
Very important.
Normal schooling wants to put you into a box or a category.
It does.
Oh, you're good at this. Also, affirmation, right? You get an A on that. You did well. So I'm like, well, I guess I did well at that. I guess that's what I should do.
Grades.
Instead of like what my heart really wants me to do. You know what I got on my report card all the time? Talks too much.
Me too.
What a surprise. And I'm a podcaster. It's like, why did they try to squelch that?
Yeah.
And it's taken me some time to unschool. So I think we all need to unschool ourselves as adults. You guys have convinced me of this, and unschool our children when possible. You guys can let me know in the comments below what you think. But I'm also going to include all of the resources that you guys recommend.
we have a list, yeah.
Yes.
So that folks, if they're intrigued by this concept, can look into it. But I think it sounds like a really healthy way to grow young human beings.
Look, I'd rather have control over my own destiny, and I'd rather be the one that said, you know what, I tripped and fell, than someone else dictating that. Like that the way we look at things, we don't say, I always say, I want my children to know who they are and what they love. And that never happens if you're looking at it from a standpoint of what's your major. That's not how it works. I tell my sons, like, we tell them, what do you want to solve in the world? And
What problems
never
are
say,
next?
what do you want to be when you grow up?
Yeah.
Desmond had his first business, how old was he, 4 or 5?
Oh my gosh.
5.
5. He Galaxy Dream Catchers. He wanted a bearded dragon, so I made a whole video about it. It was so cute. I can't wait for it to pop up and so share it. But it was basically like he sold these dream catchers. We were going to the YMCA for soccer. He would pick up sticks. Maura ordered some like feathers and other things from Amazon, and he would sell them. He made hundreds of dollars.
In like a week.
He got everything he needed, and he bought it for himself. And think about the pride. Like, we'd never want to
How could you
that.
deny your kid of that? That's why we don't buy them stuff, honestly. It's not
We'd
good for
actually,
me.
on
Because
Monday,
why would I deny my child that opportunity to
Right.
work
No,
and to take his money and say,
you should have
this
seen
is
his
mine.
face when he did it. And
So then when they come around, sorry, because
No, it's okay.
I was just wanting to finish. And then this is why when someone comes around and says, you need to share that with me, I say no.
Right.
He worked and
Right.
he does not have to share that with you. If he does not want to, and there's nothing wrong with that, but he still shares, of course.
yeah. Well, Desmond is just like a really special kid, and I forgot what I was going to say about the, just like denying that is,
Like, not wanting to wait till he grows up to decide.
Oh,
what he wants
what
to
are
Yeah.
you going to do when you grow up?
yeah, so
And
that's
the whole
like,
career, what's your major and all that.
Yeah,
stuff.
that's not how we look at it, because we know Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Edison, both of them had businesses at 12 years old. So we want to just we want to give them that autonomy. They love it. Like it's built in. Like they take pride in it, and it's again like what Maura said. Like, why would we deny them of that? Like, we don't want to deny them of that. So.
Oh, I love it so much, you guys. Thank you for being on my channel, and thanks for this conversation. Unschooling City, I'm so into it now. I love it.
Thanks for watching, you guys. Comment below and let me know what you thought. Subscribe so you don't miss a thing, and click on the notification bell so you can be alerted every time I upload a new video. Thanks again, and we'll talk soon. Hasta pronto.